As 2023 comes to a close, I want to look back at this year at some of the big releases and some of the not so big releases, my personal favourites of the year. Hundreds and hundreds of watches were released this year. This is but a small portion of my personal favourites, so don't get too offended if something you love isn't on this list. Comment below and let me know what you loved and let's have a discussion about it. First up, we have the Tudor Black Bay Burgundy with its new METAS certification, changes to the dial, the case and a new bracelet. Now this was already a really good looking watch, but Tudor have made some small tweaks and upgrades that really put this watch at the forefront of the industry. Now this watch was overshadowed by the release of the Black Bay 54, which was a massive deal when it came out. It's a little bit sad for this watch because maybe it didn't get the recognition on release that it was probably looking for. But personally, the Black Bay Burgundy appeals to me a bit more. The movement is the METAS certified Calibre MT5602U. METAS brings with it extra guarantee the watch will be top of its game, as all METAS certified watches must start off with a COSC certified movement, but also go through testing for magnetic exposure, power reserve, accuracy and water resistance. Now there is another watch brand that completely dominates the space of METAS certified movements at the moment, and that is Omega. So is this Tudor's way of saying to Omega, hey, we like what you're doing, but we can do that too? The overall thickness of the watch has been reduced by more than 1 millimeter. It's a bit thinner, but more importantly, much more comfortable to wear. The crown is new and missing the coloured tube in the older model, and the bezel has a slightly more pronounced edge. The classic snowflake design hands we all love are now used for the hour hand only. Again, a small but nice touch to help the dial feel less crowded. This new Jubilee 5-link bracelet is probably one of my favourite new additions to this watch. It just helps the watch feel a bit more elegant, a little bit more classy, and I think this watch was always crying out for this bracelet. The new changes to the release of the Black Bay Burgundy show confidence from Tudor. Tudor know they have a winner with this watch, so they are slowly and carefully evolving the watch rather than remaking it. Next up we have the Cuda Royal with the Salmon dial. The Cuda Royal was an interesting release. It was kind of underwhelming in that the watch itself was fantastic, but for some reason it just didn't seem to make much of an impact on the market. Now I don't know the figures of how many of these watches Tudor have actually sold, but I could guess that it wasn't as many as they would have liked. But that may all change though as we move forward in time. This year, Tudor released the new Salmon dial of this watch. There's something about the shade of the dial contrasting with the steel which makes the watch look much more expensive than its retail value of around $2,000. This watch is worth its money and more. With its chronometer certified movement, the new unique bezel design and 100 meters of water resistance, I just can't help but think this watch has flown under the radar. Now maybe I haven't gotten out of the house much, but I have not seen anyone wear this watch this year in public at all. Third on the list is the Oris Big Crown Calibre 473. Now Oris love a pointer date complication and they're getting rather good at making these type of watches. The vintage-inspired Big Crown models are widely loved by most watch fans, and the new 473 is no exception. The brand's new movement in this watch is Oris's 10th in-house developed movement. The Calibre 473, based on the automatic Calibre 400 introduced in 2020, has the same performance and resilience, but is hand-wound. What's more, this beautiful 5-day reserve movement is on display through a clear caseback, which has its own patented power reserve indicator on the back. This watch comes with a case diameter of 38 millimeters, the true sweet spot of any watch in my opinion. The Big Crown Calibre 473 retails at $3,700 and is one of my favourite watch releases from Oris to date. The egg-toned blue dial is fun, light and fresh. You know, I love that Oris have paired it with this style of vintage watch. It's a bit of a bold move in my opinion, and that's what I love about Oris. You know, they aren't afraid to go there with their watches, as you know. Next up is the Nivada Grenchen F77. Now, if I said to you that a steel watch with a blue dial and an integrated bracelet was just released, you'd probably fall asleep from boredom.
Wake up!
I'm not surprised. There is so much competition out there, and this style of watch now is arguably overdone, and they're everywhere. So why did Nivada think that releasing this watch now would be a good idea? Besides, there's a lot of competition out there. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe they did it for fun, or they have massive balls, or both. But the Grenchen F77, although it falls into the same category of all the watches it takes inspiration from, still intrigued me. The Grenchen F77 looks like a royal oak, which is frustrating. But then I went to see one in person and I was pleasantly surprised. The carbon weave effect on the dial is more unique than I give credit for. The case shape is nice and slim, and the integrated bracelet is spectacular. For the retail price of around $1,100, this watch competes with some rather tricky models, the PRX being the most obvious, but I still respect Nivada for following a trend, but somehow doing it differently. Now, I'd love to tell you that this watch is just a generic Royal Oak copy, but the Nivada Grenchen F77 actually has a lot of charm to it, more than I was expecting, and for that I do commend them. Fourth on the list, we are back to Oris, and it is of course the ProPilot X Kermit edition.
Kermit the Frog?
Somebody talked! No one is safe! I'm getting out of here! Yay!
What's his appeal?
This watch has to be the most random and unexpected release of 2023, and for that we can only be grateful. The Kermit edition is still a ProPilot X, meaning it's a bold redefinition of a pilot's watch, with that industrial but sleek bracelet, the angled matte brushed case and the extremely lightweight titanium material. In true Kermit fashion, the dial is green, very green, but it does grow on you in time, and how can we forget that face? When this watch was first released, I thought, who does this watch appeal to? Who would actually go out there and spend this amount of money on this watch? But it turns out it's actually a really popular watch, and I think we can see more hilarious releases like this from Oris in the future. Inside this watch is the Calibre 400, Oris's flagship movement. It has a 5-day power reserve, and each watch equipped with this movement has a 10-year guarantee. Yes, 10 years.
Impressive. Very nice.
The exhibition caseback is a nice addition to an already pronounced watch. There's always something to look at. To sum up this Kermit edition of the ProPilot X, this is a fun and wacky release from Oris. They haven't taken themselves too seriously, but I think the hype that this watch has generated means that we can expect more of this kind of thing from Oris to come. Moving on, we have the IWC Ingenieur. This watch was based on the IWC Ingenieur SL Jumbo, released in 1976. Although back then it was more of a tool watch, using an iron inner cage to house the movement. The Jumbo was the creation of the great Gerald Genter, the man who created the Royal Oak and the Nautilus. Since then, the Ingenieur has gone through several revamps, but in March 2023, IWC brought back the true Genter-styled original timepiece. Apart from this being a huge deal and a tribute to Gerald Genter, this watch has undergone modernisation to suit the needs of today's watch enthusiasts. The lines have been refined to give us a more premium and luxurious model. It feels softer and more polished. The dial stays true to the original 1976 version, but feels bolder and more eye-catching. Overall, this watch is stunning and, in my opinion, one of the biggest watch releases this year. The fact that IWC brought back this watch, but more importantly, the Gerald Genter's iconic version of this watch and just tweaked it a little bit, is a big move and a bold move from IWC, and I think this watch, despite the price point, will do well in the long run. Next up is the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona. We all know Rolex has their watchmaking down to a T, but every now and then a watch is released from Rolex that just completely sweeps me off my feet. This famous and well-known model has hit its 60th anniversary, and Rolex has made sure to make enough small changes to keep everyone happy, whilst maintaining the defining characteristics of this watch. Subtle changes have been made to the case shape, the dial and the bezel, but the big standout model for me is the Platinum Edition, which is built in 950 grade platinum, one of the highest grades you can work with.
That is really super. How did a nitwit like you get so tasteful?
It comes with an ice blue dial, chestnut brown bezel, and its new 4131 movement can be seen through a clear caseback, also revealing the 18-karat gold oscillating weight. This is the first ever Cosmograph Daytona to have an open caseback, and what a beautiful movement to showcase. Now this year has been full of some amazing, incredible watch releases. I'm sure you're all screaming at the screen now, saying, Ricardo, why didn't you mention this watch? Just comment below, there are so many watches and these are my personal favourites, but let's have a discussion about what you loved. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have an amazing Christmas, have an amazing New Year, and I will see you very soon.